A voice came over the speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're sorry to inform you that this flight has been overbooked. We need 4 volunteers to take a later flight. We offer a hotel room and $200 voucher for your trouble." No one raised their hand. People looked down or pretended to be busy with their phones. The voice came again. "If we don't get volunteers, we will have to select passengers." Michael frowned. He couldn't be delayed. Young Emma Watson had a tumor that needed removal. Mr. Johnson's brain bleed required immediate attention, and little Tommy Baker had waited 3 months for this appointment. After 10 minutes, the flight attendant walked down the aisle with a list. She stopped next to seats 14A, 17C, 22B, and 26D. "I'm very sorry, but you've been selected to take the next flight," she said to Michael in seat 26D. He looked up, surprised. "I'm sorry, but that's not possible. I'm a neurosurgeon with 3 critical surgeries tomorrow morning. People's lives depend on me being there." The flight attendant looked uncomfortable. "Sir, I understand, but these are the rules. Everyone has important places to be." "This isn't about being important," Michael explained calmly. "This is about 3 patients who might not survive if their surgeries are delayed. Please check with your manager." Other passengers were watching now. A woman across the aisle spoke up. "Let the doctor stay. I'll take the next flight." But the flight attendant shook her head. "The computer has made the selection. I need you to gather your things, sir." Michael didn't move. "Please call your supervisor. I'm happy to explain the medical emergency." 2 security officers came down the aisle. They were big men with stern faces. "Sir, you need to deplane now," said the taller one. "I can't do that," Michael said. "I'm trying to explain that I have patients." The officer grabbed Michael's arm. "You're holding up the flight." "Please, just let me speak to a manager," Michael said, still calm but firm. Without warning, both officers pulled him from his seat. Michael's head hit the overhead bin. Pain shot through his skull. He felt himself being dragged down the narrow aisle. "I'm a doctor. People are waiting for me," he called out, blood now running down his face from a cut on his forehead. Passengers gasped. Several took out their phones and started recording. "Stop, you're hurting him," someone shouted. Michael felt his glasses break as his face hit an armrest. His white shirt was now spotted with blood. Still, the officers dragged him, his legs bumping against each row of seats. Jane Roberts, a teacher in row 12, couldn't believe what she was seeing. She had recognized Dr. Thompson immediately. He had saved her nephew's life last year. She started crying as she recorded the scene on her phone. William Peters, a businessman in first class, watched in shame. He should say something, do something, but he remained frozen in his comfortable seat. By the time they reached the exit door, Michael's face was badly bruised. His tie was crooked and his jacket was torn, yet he kept his dignity. "My patients," he said quietly as they pulled him through the door. "Someone needs to tell the hospital I'm being delayed." In the terminal, people stared as the security officers left him on the floor, bloody and disoriented. 20 minutes later, the first video appeared online. By evening, millions had seen the Black Doctor with blood on his face being dragged off the plane. News channels picked up the story. "Respected neurosurgeon dragged off flight. Despite medical emergency," read the headlines. As Michael lay in a hospital bed that night, his phone kept buzzing with messages of support. But all he could think about was Emma, Mr. Johnson, and little Tommy, who wouldn't get their surgeries tomorrow. Outside the airline's main office, the first protesters had already gathered. Signs read, "He saves lives and shame on you." Inside, the company's stock price had started to fall, and at Royal Memorial Hospital, CEO Dr. Victoria Hamilton watched the video of her star surgeon being mistreated with tears in her eyes and anger in her heart. She picked up the phone. This would not stand. The end doctor. Michael Thompson woke up in the hospital with a throbbing headache. The bright lights made him squint. His face felt swollen and tender. A nurse adjusted his pillow. "How long have I been here?" he asked, his voice raspy. "About 12 hours, the nurse replied. "You've been on the news all night." Michael tried to sit up. "My patients. I need to call the hospital." "Dr. Hamilton already called," the nurse said gently. "She knows everything." Outside, the hospital reporters gathered with cameras and microphones. The video of Michael being dragged down the airplane aisle had spread faster than anyone expected. People shared it with angry comments. News channels played it every hour. At Skyway, Airline's headquarters, a crowd of protesters grew by the minute. Among them were Emma Watson's parents, holding a sign that read, "He saves lives." Mr. Johnson's wife and children stood nearby with their own sign, "Dignity for Dr. Thompson." Tommy Baker's mother spoke to reporters with tears in her eyes. "My son has waited 3 months for his surgery," she said. "Every day with a brain tumor is scary for a 7-year-old. How do I tell him he has to wait longer because someone dragged his doctor off a plane?" Inside the airline offices, managers held emergency meetings. The company's stock price had dropped by 15% in one day. Thousands of people were cancelling their tickets. The airline's social media pages were flooded with angry messages. At Royal Memorial Hospital, the mood was grim. Dr. Victoria Hamilton sat in her office, watching the video for the 10th time. Each viewing made her angrier. She had known Michael for 20 years. He had saved countless lives with his skilled hands and brilliant mind. Now he lay in a hospital bed, beaten and humiliated. 25 years of healing the most vulnerable. "And this is his reward," she whispered. Her assistant knocked on the door. "The board members are waiting in the conference room." In the large meeting room, hospital leaders sat around a table, faces serious. "We have a crisis," Dr. Hamilton began. 3 critical surgeries need to be postponed. Emma Watson's tumor is growing fast. Mr. Johnson's brain bleed could worsen any day, and little Tommy Baker has already waited too long. "Can we bring in another surgeon?" someone asked. "Not on such short notice. Not for these complex cases," Dr. Hamilton replied. "Michael is the best. These patients and their families chose him specifically." She stood up straight, her decision made. "Pull our travel records. I want exact figures on how much business we've given Skyway Airlines over the past decade." Her assistant returned 30 minutes later with a thick folder. "Royal Memorial and our 6 affiliated hospitals have spent just over $675 million with Skyway in the last 10 years. Dr. Hamilton picked up her phone. "Get me the CEO of Skyway Airlines. Tell him it's urgent." While the hospital prepared for battle, Michael lay in his bed thinking about Peter Wilson. The 12-year-old boy had a tumor pressing on his brainstem. The surgery was scheduled for tomorrow morning. Peter had been so brave during their last meeting, asking thoughtful questions about the procedure. A different nurse came in to check. "Michael's blood pressure." "Could you do me a favor?" Michael asked. "There's a boy named Peter Wilson who was supposed to have surgery with me tomorrow. Could you ask someone to tell him I'll be there somehow? I don't want him to worry." The nurse looked surprised. "You're thinking about your patients after what happened to you?" Michael closed his eyes. "They're why I became a doctor." Later that evening, Dr. Hamilton entered Michael's hospital room. Despite his bruised face, he tried to sit up when he saw her. Dr. Michael Thompson closed his tired eyes for a moment as he settled into his window seat. The last 3 days at the medical conference had been both rewarding and exhausting. His talk on new brain surgery techniques had gone well, but now, all he wanted was to get home to London. 3 patients needed him tomorrow morning at Royal Memorial Hospital. The plane was full. People pushed bags into overhead bins and squeezed past each other in the narrow aisle. Michael checked his watch. If all went well, he would be back in his office by evening to review his patients' files one more time before tomorrow's surgeries. "Victoria, we need to reschedule the surgeries. Peter Wilson can't wait more than—" She held up her hand to stop him. "I've made a call that might change everything. The Skyway Airlines CEO is meeting us tomorrow morning." "To apologize?" Michael asked. "Dr." Hamilton smiled for the first time that day. "For much more than that. Get some rest, you'll need your strength." As she left, Michael's phone lit up with another message. This one was from little Tommy's mother. "We're fighting for you, Dr. Thompson, just like you've always fought for Tommy." Outside, the crowd of supporters had grown. Inside, a plan was forming that would transform a terrible moment into something unexpected. The end. The meeting room at Skyway Airlines headquarters was large and cold. The long table gleamed under bright lights. On one side sat the airline executives, in dark suits looking nervous. On the other side was Dr. Victoria Hamilton and her team from Royal Memorial Hospital. William Parker, the airline CEO, cleared his throat. "First, let me say how deeply sorry we are about the incident involving Dr. Thompson. It was unacceptable and we take full responsibility." Dr. Hamilton's face remained serious. "Apologies are a start, Mr. Parker, but we're here for something much more important." The airline team had prepared for a typical complaint meeting, maybe some demands for money, perhaps threats of lawsuits, but they weren't prepared for what happened next. Dr. Hamilton opened a folder and pushed it across the table. "Royal Memorial and our 6 affiliated hospitals represent an annual corporate account of nearly $700 million in travel expenses," she said calmly. "That's nearly $900 million to your American parent company." William Parker shifted in his chair. The other airline executives looked at each other with wide eyes. "We're prepared to withdraw every penny," Dr. Hamilton continued, "unless you show us this incident represents an opportunity for transformation, not just compensation." Robert Jones, the hospital's finance director, leaned forward. "Dr. Thompson's experience has revealed a serious flaw in how medical professionals are treated during travel emergencies. He's not the first doctor to face this problem, just the first to have it caught on video." Dr. Hamilton nodded. "Our question is, what are you going to do to ensure this never happens again? Not just to our doctors, but to any medical professional trying to reach patients in need." The room was quiet for a moment. Then John Adams, the airline's operations manager, spoke up. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A partnership," Dr. Hamilton replied. "One that could change everything, for both of us." For the next 3 hours, ideas flew back and forth across the table. At first, the airline executives were defensive, but as the conversation continued, something changed. The mood shifted from tension to possibility. What if every doctor could travel without fear of being denied transport during emergencies? Asked Robert Jones. "What if your airline became known as the one that prioritizes medical professionals responding to critical cases?" added Dr. Hamilton. William Parker, who had been quiet for some time, suddenly sat up straighter. "We could create a medical priority system, special boarding for doctors traveling for emergency cases, and training for your staff," said Dr. Hamilton, "so they understand why a doctor might need to be on a specific flight." "We could go further," said Mary Wilson, the airline's marketing director, excitement growing in her voice. "What about dedicated medical transport flights, for organs being transported for transplant or for specialists traveling to rare cases?" By lunchtime, the ideas were flowing freely. By mid-afternoon, the airline's lawyers were drafting documents. By evening, something remarkable was taking shape. A partnership that would transform both the airline and the hospital's approach to emergency medical travel. "We need a name for this," said William Parker, now fully engaged. "Wings of Healing," suggested Dr. Hamilton. As darkness fell outside the windows, both teams stood around the table looking at the draft agreement. It would create the world's first comprehensive medical transport program between a major hospital network and an international airline. "This could save countless lives," said Robert Jones quietly. William Parker nodded. "And it might just save our airline too." When Dr. Hamilton finally called Michael Thompson in his hospital room, her voice was filled with excitement. "How did it go?" Michael asked. "It started as a battle," she replied, "but ended as something I never expected. They're not just apologizing, Michael. They're helping us create something extraordinary." Michael listened as she explained the new partnership. For the first time since the incident, he smiled. "So something good might come from all this," he said. "More than good," Dr. Hamilton replied. "Something transformative." Outside the meeting room, the protest signs still waved in the evening wind. The news channels still played the dramatic video, but inside, a new story was being written. One that would turn a moment of pain into years of progress. The end. The spring day at Heathrow Airport was bright and clear. A large crowd gathered around a stage set up near a gleaming white airplane. The aircraft had a new symbol painted on its side, a pair of wings wrapped around a medical cross. Camera crews pointed their equipment at the stage where Dr. Michael Thompson stood at a podium. 6 months had passed since the video of him being dragged down the airplane aisle had shocked the world. His face showed no signs of the injuries now. He wore a crisp white doctor's coat over his suit, looking strong and calm. Behind him sat important people from both Skyway Airlines and Royal Memorial Hospital. Large screens showed the words, "Wings of Healing," above pictures of medical staff boarding planes. "Welcome to the beginning of something new," Michael said into the microphone. His voice carried across the crowd. 6 months ago, I experienced something painful. Today we transform that pain into progress. He gestured to the airplane with the special logo. This is the first of 20 aircraft dedicated to our new medical transport program. People clapped as he explained the details of the $900 million partnership between Skyway Airlines and Royal Memorial Hospital. The program would include emergency medical flights, priority seating for doctors responding to urgent cases, and special training for flight crews. From now on, when a doctor needs to reach a patient quickly, Skyway Airlines will make it happen, Michael said. No more missed surgeries, no more delays when minutes matter. Dr. Victoria Hamilton stepped forward to explain more details. Every member of Skyway's staff will receive medical emergency training. Special boarding lanes for medical professionals are now in place at every airport they serve. The crowd seemed impressed. Journalists took notes. Some of the patients whose surgeries had been delayed after Michael's incident stood in the front row, smiling and nodding. After the main announcements, Michael moved on to what seemed to matter most to him personally. Pain either breaks us or builds something new through us, he said quietly. I choose to build. He announced a new scholarship program for students from poor or minority backgrounds who wanted to become neurosurgeons. Too many brilliant minds never get the chance to save lives because of money or discrimination, he explained. We're changing that today. A young woman named Elizabeth Brown came to the stage. She was 22 with bright eyes and a nervous smile. Michael put his hand on her shoulder. 5 years ago, I operated on Elizabeth's little brother after a bad accident. Today, she becomes our first scholarship recipient. Next month, she begins medical school. Elizabeth stepped to the microphone. Her voice shook slightly as she spoke. I never thought someone like me could become a brain surgeon, she said. My family never had much money. No one from my neighborhood in Leeds becomes a doctor. But Dr. Thompson showed me that barriers exist to be overcome. She looked at Michael with tears in her eyes. When I saw what happened to him on that plane, I felt angry and helpless. Now I feel hopeful. Someday I'll help patients just like he helped my brother. After the ceremony, people gathered for refreshments. Michael was speaking with some hospital board members when he noticed a man standing awkwardly nearby, watching him. The man wore a Skyway Airlines uniform, but looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. Michael excused himself and walked over. He recognized the man immediately. James Miller had been one of the security officers who dragged him down the aisle that day. He had been the one who grabbed Michael's arms. Dr. Thompson, James said, his voice low. I didn't expect you to come. Talk to me. You seemed like you wanted to say something, Michael replied calmly. James couldn't look him in the eye. I've been haunted by what I did, he admitted. I lost my job after the video went viral. I deserved to. And now you work. For Skyway again? Michael asked. James nodded. They hired me back as part of this new program. I'm being trained as a medical transport liaison. They said you approved it. Michael studied the man's face. I did. Why? James asked, finally looking up. After what I did to you? Michael's expression was thoughtful. Because people deserve second chances. Because mistakes can lead to growth. He held out his hand. Then help me ensure it never happens to anyone else. James took Michael's hand, his eyes wide with surprise. Thank you, he whispered. Nearby, Elizabeth. Brown watched the exchange. In that moment, she understood she was learning something more important than medicine. She was learning what real healing looked like. The end. The summer sun shone brightly as a crowd gathered on the airport tarmac. 1 year had passed since the incident that changed everything. Dr. Michael Thompson stood tall before 5 gleaming white airplanes. Each one bore the Wings of Healing logo, a pair of wings wrapped around a medical cross. Michael wore a simple blue suit. His kind eyes scanned the crowd of doctors, nurses, airline staff, and reporters. Next to him stood James Miller, in his new uniform, navy blue with the medical wings emblem on the chest pocket. James had been retrained as a medical transport liaison, helping medical professionals travel quickly to emergencies. 1 year ago today, Michael began, none of us could have imagined this moment. His voice was strong and clear in the summer air. What began as a painful incident has grown into something remarkable. A large screen behind him showed pictures of medical teams boarding planes, doctors rushing to waiting ambulances, and surgeries being performed. In just 12 months, our Wings of Healing program has facilitated over 200 emergency medical transports. Our studies show at least 43 lives have been saved, patients who would have died without rapid medical intervention. In the front row, several of those patients watched with grateful eyes. Among them was 10-year-old Tommy Baker, whose brain surgery had been postponed after Michael's incident. His mother wiped tears from her eyes as Michael continued speaking. This program represents more than corporate responsibility. It shows what happens when we transform anger into action, pain into progress. Michael walked toward a red ribbon stretched across the entrance to the newest plane, a special aircraft designed only for medical transport. It had equipment for emergency procedures and space for medical teams to prepare during flight. James handed him a large pair of scissors. Their eyes met for a moment. Both men remembered their first painful meeting and how far they had come. Since then, sometimes our greatest wounds create the pathways through which true healing can finally flow, Michael said as he cut the ribbon. The crowd cheered and cameras flashed. Business schools were already writing case studies about how Skyway Airlines had turned a disaster into an industry-changing program. Company leaders from around the world had visited to learn from their example. After the ceremony, Elizabeth Brown, now in her first year of medical school, approached Michael with a shy smile. "I got top marks in my anatomy class," she told him. "The scholarship has changed my life." "You're changing your own life," Michael replied. "I just opened a door." Later that evening, Michael visited the home of Peter Wilson. Peter had been 12 when Michael performed emergency surgery on his brain tumor, the operation that had been delayed because of the airplane incident. Now 13, the boy was fully recovered and thriving. They sat in the family's small garden, playing chess as the sun began to set. Peter moved his knight across the board with careful consideration. "Did you see all those planes today?" Michael asked. "The whole fleet with the Wings of Healing logo?" Peter nodded. "Mum showed me the news, on her phone." "That all happened because of what happened to you, right?" "In a way," Michael said, moving his bishop. "Sometimes bad things lead to good changes." Peter studied the board quietly for a moment. Then he looked up at Michael with serious eyes. "You know what I learned from you?" he asked. "That it's not what happens to us that matters most, but what we choose to do with it." Michael paused, touched by the boy's wisdom. In this child's words, he heard the true meaning of his journey. He remembered the pain and humiliation of being dragged down that airplane aisle. He remembered the anger and the desire for justice. And he remembered the moment he chose to build rather than break. "That's exactly right, Peter," he said softly. "That's exactly right." As evening fell, lights came on in houses across the neighborhood. Somewhere in the distance, a plane took off into the darkening sky. Perhaps it carried a doctor rushing to save a life. Perhaps that doctor would board without trouble, thanks to new systems now in place. Michael looked at Peter, healthy, alive, with his whole future ahead of him, and felt a deep sense of peace. This was the true healing, he thought, not just fixing bodies, but showing others how to transform pain into purpose. The end.